So good morning class. Today I'm going to discuss the human development, meaning, concepts, and approaches. The growth refers to changes in physical attributes of a person. Human development is the overall pattern of movement or change, such as physical, cognitive, psychosocial, etc., that begins at conception and continues through the lifespan. There are two approaches to human development, which is the traditional approach, which emphasizes extensive change from birth to adolescence, little or no change in adulthood, and decline in old age. The second one is the lifespan approach, believes that even in adulthood, developmental change takes place as it does in childhood. It is developed by German psychologist Paul Baltes. He based this approach on several key principles, which is number one, development occurs across one's entire life or is lifelong. It means the development is not completed in an infancy or childhood or at any specific age. It encompasses the entire lifespan from conception to death. Number two is development is multidimensional. Baltus refers to the fact that a complex interplay of factors influence development across the lifespan, including biological, cognitive, and socio-emotional changes. Number three is the development is multidirectional and results in gains and losses throughout life. Development involves growth, maintenance, and regularity. Number four, development is plastic. It means that characteristics are malleable or changeable. Number five, development is influenced by contextual and sociocultural influences. Baltus' three influences, which are the normative age-weighted influence, are those biological and environmental factors that have a strong correlation with chronological age. The second one is the normative history-graded influences are associated with a specific time period that defines the broader environmental and cultural context in which individual develops. The last one is the non-normative influences, unpredictable and not tied to a certain developmental time in a person's development or to a historical period. The number six, development is multidisciplinary. Some major principles of human development is number one, development occurs in a relatively orderly sequence. This means that pattern of development is likely to be similar. The cephalocodal pattern, where the greatest development takes place at the top of the body, which is the head, and the physical development moves gradually downwards, which is the neck, shoulders, trunk, and etc. The proximodistal pattern, growth starts at the center of the body and moves towards the extremities. Number two, the outcomes of developmental processes and the rate of development are likely to vary among individuals. Number three, development takes place gradually. Number four, development as a process is complex. It is a process that cannot be compartmentalized into one domain. Biological processes involve changes in the individual's physical nature. Cognitive process involve change in the individual's thought, intelligence, and language. Socio-emotional processes include changes in the individual relationships with other people. The next topic that I'm going to discuss or tackle to you is the stages of development and developmental task. Developmental task is one that occurs predictably and consistently and at or about a certain point in an individual's life. The concept of developmental task posits that in modern societies, human development is characterized by a long series of activities that individuals must learn throughout their lives. So the characteristic of developmental task, Havigers consider the many various aspects of a person's life that influence a person's development, such as the individual's biological development and physical structures, the society and the person's lives, and the resulting cultural influence. and the individual's personal characteristics, values, and goals. There are sensitive periods which Havigerst refers to as teachable moments when an individual is mature enough to learn developmental tasks which can be physical, such as walking, cognitive, such as learning to read, or social, such developing significant relationships. The sources of developmental tasks is number 1, physical maturation, number 2, socio-structural and cultural influences are another source developmental challenge. Number 3 is personal values and goals are the third source of developmental tasks. The periods of development and developmental tasks. The infancy and early childhood from birth till 6 years old, their developmental tasks are learning to walk, learning to take solid foods, learning to talk, learning to control the elimination of body waste, learning sex differences and sexual modesty, learning forming concepts and learning language to describe social and physical reality, and the last one is getting ready to read. From middle childhood, which is the 6 years old to 12 years old, they are learning physical skills necessary for online ordinary games, building wholesome attitudes towards oneself as a growing organism, learning to get along with age mates, learning an appropriate masculine or feminine social role, developing fundamental skills in reading, writing, and calculating, developing concepts necessary for everyday living, developing conscience, morality, and a scale of values, achieving personal independence, developing attitudes towards social and institution. Next is the adolescence, which is 13 years old to 18 years old, which is they achieve new and more mature relations with age mates of both sexes, achieving a masculine or feminine social role, achieving emotional independence of parents and other adults, preparing for marriage and family life, preparing for an economic career, acquiring a set of values and an ethical system as guide to behavior developing, and an ideology, desiring and achieving socially and responsible behavior. So the next is the early adulthood, which is 19 years old to 30 years old. They select a mate at this age, achieving a masculine or feminine social role, learning to live with a marriage partner, starting a family, rearing a children, managing a home, getting started in an occupation, taking on civic responsibility, and finding a congenial social group. The next is middle age, which is 30 years old to 60 years old. They achieve adult civic and social responsibility, establishing and maintaining an economic standard of living, assisting teenage children to become responsible and happy adults, developing adult leisure time activities, relating oneself to one's spouse as person, and adjusting to aging parents. The late adulthood, which is 60 years old and over, adjusting to decreasing physical strength and health, adjusting to retirement and reduced income, adjusting to death of a spouse, establishing an explicit affiliation with one's age group, meeting social and civil obligations, establishing satisfactory physical living arrangement. So the next topic that I'm going to discuss to you is the issues of human development. The four theoretical issues of human development, which is the nature and nurture. There's a question, why are you the way you are? As you considered some of your features such as height, weight, personality, and being diabetic, etc. Those on the side of nature would argue that heredity plays the most important role in bringing about that feature. Those on the side of nurture would argue that one's environment is most significant in shaping the way you are. The next is continuity versus discontinuity. The theories of Freud, Erikson, Piaget, and Kohlberg are being called the stage theories. Stage theories, or discontinuous development, assume that developmental change often occurs in distinct stages that are qualitatively different from each other, and in a set, universal sequence. The behaviorist Vygotsky and information processing theorists assume that development is more slow and gradual process known as continuous development. The next is stability versus change. Some theorists argue that personality traits of adults are rooted in the behavioral and emotional tendencies of the infant and young child. Some disagree and believe that these initial tendencies are modified by social and cultural forces over time. Stability implies that personal traits present in childhood persist throughout life. Change theorists contend that interaction with family, experiences at school, and acculturation shape personalities. The last one is the active versus passive, which active beings are the prime determiners of their own abilities and traits. Some theorists see humans as playing as much more active role in their own development. Passive beings whose characteristics are molded either by social influences, which parents, other significant people, and outside events, or by biological changes beyond their control. So the last topic that I'm going to discuss to you is the research in child and adolescent development. According to Cochrane, Smith, and Lytle, research primarily served two purposes for teacher educators and teaching in teacher education in general. Number one is enhancing one's practice and knowledge of teacher education. This objective deals with the development and advancement of local knowledge and practice. Number two is adding to the larger body of information on teacher education. This objective focuses on the creation of public information and its transmission to the teacher education research community. The research in teacher education constantly focusing on altering and developing one's practice in addition to knowledge generation. The classroom teachers as researchers. Teacher researchers are innovators, curriculum developers, advocates for institutional change, and manage their own professional growth who seek to learn from what happens in the classroom. The impacts of teachers' participation in research on teacher is number one, educators who have participated in research may become more self-reflective, analytical, and critical in their instruction, and open and committed to their own professional development. The participating in teacher research also enables educators to make more thoughtful decisions and to take more strategic actions in the classroom. The number three is the professional disposition of lifelong learner. Reflective and mindful teaching and self-transformation are developed by teacher research. So number four, participating in teacher research at any level may cause one to reevaluate and reconstruct what it means to be a teacher, which may have an impact on how instructors interact with children and students. Number five, the last one is teacher research has the ability to show current and aspiring educators that learning to teach and learning to inquiry are interconnected. So that's all. Thank you for listening.